watching UATV News. My name is Inna Kosinska. Good evening. 4 intergovernmental agreements worth €1.3 billion were signed on May 13 by Ukraine and France. The documents were signed by head of the Ukrainian government Denis Shmyhal and Minister of Economy and Finance of France Bruno Le Maire during his working trip to Kyiv. It is about the supply of 130 French electric locomotives and 370 lifting machines for rescuers to work at height.
One of
the largest of these 4 agreements is the agreement on the supply of 130 electric locomotives by Alstom for a total amount of up to €900 million. The actual level of localization of production, which will be 35%, is very important, and this means that we will create thousands of jobs in Ukraine. I would like to note that we have heard the wishes of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to increase the participation of Ukraine and Ukrainian companies in the implementation of those areas of work that are outlined in our contractual agreements.
Lithuania is regularly highlighting the topic of Russian aggression against Ukraine because it is unacceptable to have this issue withdrawn from the global agenda. Head of the Lithuanian parliament stressed on this during her official visit to Ukraine on Wednesday. One of the main topics of her meetings with Ukrainian MPs and officials was the issue of security. On April 27, the Seimas has approved a resolution condemning the Russian aggression against Ukraine. We recognize that it is unacceptable from the point of view of the international law and international security. We have also stressed that those Russian actions are also posing a threat to the security of all the European states.
One of the threats to the European Union and Ukraine as well is the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. We all remember well how Russia employs this project. Unfortunately for Russia, this project is a political, not an economic one. It is likely to put pressure on European states, and I'm happy that now we and Lithuania are looking in one direction and are jointly accepting all challenges our countries face.
All Ukrainian Forum Ukraine 30 National Security has started in Kyiv on May 11. Opening the forum, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky noted that Ukraine's strategic goal is membership in the European Union and NATO. The head of state approved the national program of cooperation between Ukraine and NATO for the current year. It foresees the steps Ukraine has to take to approach membership in the alliance.
For Ukraine, such a systemic integration is an important source of compensation for the lack of resources, military, economic and financial. That is why the development of strategic relations with our key foreign partners, primarily with the European Union, NATO and their member states, the United States of America, pragmatic cooperation with other states and international organizations, based on the national interests of Ukraine, is the basis of our interaction strategy. The strategic course of the state is to acquire full membership in the EU and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
To make this course sustainable, it is necessary to strengthen the country's defense capability. Although Russia is withdrawing troops from the borders with Ukraine, it does it very slowly. Therefore, the threats persist. To prevent a new escalation and help Ukraine if it does happen, the EU is initiating an assistance project for the purchase of defense and rescue equipment. By 2022, the Ministry of Internal Affairs plans to procure 55 new helicopters that will participate in rescue operations.
What does this project include? It includes 10 modern H-145 helicopters for the National Police, 24 H-125 helicopters for the State Border Guard Service, and 21 H-225 helicopters for the National Guard and the State Emergency Service. In general, the cost of the project is €550 million. It is implemented through a loan provided by the French government. This is a mutually beneficial project that brings us closer to the EU and makes Ukrainians know that their lives will be saved.
On May 12, the participants of the forum talked about the country's defense capabilities. Facing the Russian threat, Ukraine is modernizing its army according to NATO standards. The state concern Ukroboronprom declares that Ukraine is quite capable of providing its troops with modern military equipment. And according to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the Ukrainian troops already have the highest combat capability among all countries that apply to join the alliance.
Moreover, talking to the commander-in-chief and chiefs of general staffs of NATO member states, I came to the conclusion that a lot of what we have already done from the task list for joining NATO has not yet been completed by all countries that have already been accepted to the bloc, especially by those which have been accepted recently.
The third day of the forum was devoted to cyber defense. The same day, the UATV Cybersecurity Center was launched in Ukraine. Its specialists monitor and counter cyber attacks and cyber incidents, protecting the personal data of Ukrainians, government agencies, and other objects of Ukraine. In addition to the Cyber Incident Response Center, there is also a training facility. Specialists from various institutions work out real scenarios of cyber attacks and employ their professional skills. And the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine also plans to approve a new strategy to combat cyber threats.
That is a good start. We have huge plans to train such specialists. In addition to the center, we are developing a university. We will present it soon. It is also very important. Ukraine should bring up those specialists from the age of 15-16, so that they do not go anywhere. We should offer them a real job here, and they in turn will provide us with a safe life.
Viktor Medvedchuk, MP of Ukraine, leader of the political council of one of the parliamentary parties, was put on an electronic bracelet. Office of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine informs this. Earlier, the Pechersk District Court of Kyiv has chosen the measure of preventive restriction for Medvedchuk, that is a 24/7 home arrest. Viktor Medvedchuk will stay under house arrest till July 9. The MP is suspected of high treason and embezzlement of Ukraine's national resources in the occupied Crimea. In February this year, the National Security and Defense Council has sanctioned all of Medvedchuk's and his wife's property. The measures are linked with the criminal proceedings on financing terrorism, which has been investigated by the Security Service of Ukraine. The reconstruction of the runway will be held at the Sikorsky Kyiv International Airport. This will allow the airport to receive heavy passenger aircraft. The current runway's length is a bit more than 2 kilometers. They plan to make it 500 meters longer. This would allow to receive Airbus 330 and 321 and Boeing 737 aircraft without restrictions. The reconstruction will last 3 years, and the airport will suspend its operation for 9 months. During this period, all flights will be redirected to Boryspil International Airport. The airline standards are changing. For instance, the main order of the airlines for the next 10 years is Airbus 321. At present, the runway of Kyiv International Airport allows to accept Airbus 321 with a number of restrictions. Therefore, reconstruction is a requirement of time. The number of passengers in the world is changing as well. As of May 14, 7,562 new daily cases of coronavirus infection were registered in Ukraine. 2,195 people were hospitalized, but 15,958 Ukrainians recovered. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health has again put on the regions to the orange quarantine zone. The number of cases in Mykolaiv regions has slightly exceeded the norm. The rest of Ukrainian regions remained in the yellow zone. The adaptive quarantine in Ukraine will probably last till August, Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal said. He noted that this model of quarantine restrictions has already brought its results, and the government has no plans to introduce a nationwide strict quarantine. Since the Ministry of Health expects to vaccinate the majority of Ukrainians by the Independence Day, in this case, the quarantine can be eased, Prime Minister added. The psychological and professional adaptation of veterans who participated in hostilities in eastern Ukraine is one of the priorities of the state. The relevant ministry has elaborated a number of projects that will help them adapt from military to civilian life. Our journalists know more.
When Ruslan returned from the conflict zone in Donbass, he felt apathy for a long time. But realizing that his family needed him, Ruslan decided to seek psychological assistance. He found himself in photography, and now the man helps other veterans undergo sports rehabilitation at a local center. Running away from some specific problems, you will not find yourself. Because sooner or later you will still have to return to reality, and it will not disappear anyhow. Therefore, I partially returned to my previous life, like before the army. And I started discovering something new for myself. One of the main priorities for the state is to return veterans to civilian life. The Ministry for Veterans Affairs has developed a model that includes medical, psychological and employment assistance, as well as provides social guarantees to veterans. They promise an individual approach to each person.
Any change is a psychologically sensitive affair for such a person. The state should support this. We already have some developments. There is cooperation with the Ministry of Defense and with the National Police. We will be able to make a practical model only when the regulatory framework, the relevant common positions with all the information is ready, and now it has only been developed.
Absolutely all veterans are in need of psychological rehabilitation, doctors say, especially those who took part in the hostilities. According to specialists, every second person who seeks aid has post-concussional syndrome.
Post-concussional syndrome is accompanied by not only physical complaints like hearing impairment, vision or dizziness. It has a large group of psychological problems: aggressiveness, unbalanced emotions, which often change their character, impulsiveness, and all this violates the quality of life. The family suffers, children, parents, the circle of the traumatized thus expands.
Veterans often face difficulties in finding a job. We face with the problem that some benefits which according to the law belong to a veteran are the barrier to employment. Therefore, we believe that it is necessary to create tools that will maximize the employment of veterans, help them find work. Support for veterans' businesses is also planned. In addition to tax incentives, an online platform will soon be launched in Ukraine. Veterans entrepreneurs will be able to present their product, post job advertisements and search for new partners. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Vlada Tsurkan, UATV News.
The International Nurses' Day was celebrated this week around the world. There are almost 300,000 specialists in Ukraine. 92% of them are women. Why do nurses choose their profession and what do patients wish them? Our correspondent found out. International Nurses' Day is celebrated on May 12th, the birthday of Florence Nightingale, founder of the Sisters of Mercy service during the Crimean War of the 19th century. Nowadays, nurses are also on the front lines, saving lives at the risk of their own.
Tetiana Maximchuk has been working as a nurse at the Kyiv Military Hospital for 28 years. She visited the conflict zone in Donbass more than once. The woman says she loves her profession for the opportunity to provide aid to a person in time and immediately see the results of the work.
When a person was just unconscious, felt bad, it was necessary to start rescue till the doctors came. And you do this in the field. You see the soldier's paleness gone and you feel great. It is the feeling of happiness that you help just here and now.
Anatoly is Tetiana's most difficult patient. Together with her colleagues, she evacuated a 230-kilogram military man with a heart attack from the Desna training center on a standard resuscitation vehicle stretcher. This case is registered in the Ukrainian Book of Records.
We're all small. How did we get him up? While we put him onto a stretcher, he suffered cardiac arrest. An hour later, he asked for yogurt or something like that. But we cannot understand how did we manage to bring him to the hospital.
I had only 1% to live. 99% were then given by the doctors, and I'm very grateful to nurses and doctors. There are 114 colleges in Ukraine where 49,000 students are studying in the nursing specialty.
This includes specialists with higher education. There are nurses who are developing, who are occupying the manager's positions. It's not easy. You have to defend your work, defend your profession and yourself. This is like a doctor's profession.
Measuring one's temperature, giving a jab or taking blood for analysis, all of this is a nurse's work. But the main responsibility of a nurse is to take care of the patient. When patients feel it, it is easier to cope with the disease. The coronavirus pandemic has made the work of doctors, including nurses, especially appreciated. According to the latest data by the Ministry of Health, during the pandemic, more than 82,000 Ukrainian health workers got COVID-19. 796 died. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Olena Diduch, UATV News.
A victory for which Ukraine has paid a terrible price. World War II took the lives of 8 million Ukrainians. 76 years after the fall of the Nazi regime, every Ukrainian family has the photo of a person without whom this victory would have been impossible. On May 9, the day of victory over Nazism, Ukrainians honor the memory of the victims of the war.
On May the 9th, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky participated in the ceremony of honoring the memory of the killed in World War II, which was held at the Eternal Flame in Kyiv. After that, he visited the National Museum of History of Ukraine in World War II, which has prepared the new exhibitions History of the War and Ukraine – Unfinished War.
Із покоління в покоління батьки
From generation to generation, parents used to tell their children stories about the war. But the situation has changed since 2014, when children started telling their parents about the war. All this is painful, and it is unfair to our ancestors who defended the Ukrainian land. But it is their heroism that gives strength to a new generation of Ukrainian military, to our defenders. The memory of those killed in World War II was also honored by Chairman of the Parliament, his deputies, and heads of the parliamentary committees.
Це те, що принесла
We should always remember everything the war brought us. I heard from a young age that it would never happen again. What had happened during World War II should remain in the past. We should remember, we have to do everything possible so that history is not rewritten, and everyone should know Ukraine's contribution to this victory. The Victory Day is a special holiday for veteran Alexander Ivashchenko.
Прийшов з світами і як?
I came here with flowers, with joy and sorrow. I have different emotions now. You know, I've lost my brother during the war. All my relatives have passed away, and I'm the oldest. It's painful, but we've won, and we live now. Hundreds of Kyivans have laid flowers to the memorials to honor the memory of the fallen and to remind themselves and everyone that war means horror.
It's the day due to which I'm here. 6 of my grandfather's brothers perished in the Korsun-Shevchenkivsky battle. How can I stay at home? We have to honor such people.
Всі родителі – це отець.
All my family, father, uncle, all of them were fighting. And my mother is a unique person. Chairing the orphanage, she has been saving Jewish children. She is righteous among the nations. For me, this is the most dear, sacred day.
Сьогодні ми прийшли
I came here with my son, wife and parents to honor the memory of the fallen.
Потому что, конечно же, благодаря этому всему у нас есть мир.
It's due to all of them we have a peaceful sky. My grandfather fought in that war. He was among those who put the flag on Reichstag in Berlin. This great day should be in memory of everyone.
Щоб це ніколи не
We should honor this day and people who gave their lives for our future. We should carry the memory together with our children and grandchildren. I dream about peace in Ukraine and throughout the world.
Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Hranovska, UATV News.
For the first time in its history, Ukraine commemorates those who've been saving their lives of Jews during World War II. On May 14, a symbolic synagogue was unveiled in the Babi Yar Memorial in Kyiv. The wooden structure, designed by a Swiss architect Manuel Gertz, is 11 meters high and resembles a book. Its walls are covered in patterns and text of Jewish prayers. Its roof shows the Kyiv sky on September 29, 1941, the day when mass killings of Jews in Babi Yar began.
Those were the people of the highest humanity, the righteous among the nations. They had nothing except their conscience, and it's good that they are commemorated. I think better late than never.
An underground salt mine at a depth of 300 meters in the town of Solodar in Donetsk region of Ukraine is open for tourists. It is a part of the Salt Symphony Health Resort. In the mine, one can walk through underground labyrinths and get healthier breathing, healing air. Our correspondents will tell you more about the excursion to the unique object.
See, this helmet is regulated in different ways and can suit any head. Before going down to the salt mine, one should undergo a short briefing by local miners. The healing excursion at a depth of 300 meters lasts 4 hours. During this time, tourists visit the mining site. Salt production stopped there yet in 1980s. The guides say the salt deposit itself is hundreds of millions years old. Scientists once explained, when there was a cold climate long ago, a strip of anhydrite has been formed here, then a layer of salt, and then anhydrite again. And this is how a deposit was formed. It is from 250 to 270 million years old. All visitors of the salt mine are invited to do breathing exercises.
Take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Do it 3 times. I'll show you how.
Physical therapy instructor Olena has been working in an underground health resort for more than 10 years. The doctor says exercise therapy is helpful for patients with respiratory problems.
пациентам, особенно детям.
It is extremely helpful for patients, especially children. This therapy improves immunity, heals the upper respiratory tract, especially after serious illnesses like coronavirus. It is very useful. We do those exercises for better lung capacity.
During a recreational excursion, guests of the underground resort can play football, volleyball, or have a rest on a comfortable bed located in a separate part of the mine. The interior of the mine is complemented by different salt sculptures made by Ukrainian craftsmen on the walls. This beauty is striking, it's amazing. A man had only found it, but it was here long before. It is very easy to breathe here.
I'm excited, you know, it's breathtaking. I can say only wonderful words. It's one-of-a-kind resort.
Every day, the underground resort is ready to receive up to 100 of tourists who come here from all regions of Ukraine. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Olena Hramova, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website and Facebook pages. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.